The NRA has a new president, and she is not a fan of a freshman lawmaker who ran her campaign specifically on the issue of gun control and won. Now, Carolyn Meadows is the new president of the NRA, and she believes that Representative Lucy McBath in Georgia only won because of the fact that she is a black woman. Didn't win because of her actual policy proposals and her platform. So here's what Carolyn Meadows, again, this is the NRA president, had to say in reference to Representative Lucy McBath. Quote, "It is wrong to say, like McBath said, that the reason she won was because of her anti-gun stance. That didn't have anything to do with it. It had to do with being a minority female. And the Democrats really turned out. And that's the problem we have with conservatives. We don't turn out as well." I think that might be the first person I've ever heard argue that Democrats turn out more than Republicans do.
Maybe she was saying that we don't turn out as good, like as well in life, like as a good people. Like
that,
we just,
then in that case, I agree
we don't
with
turn
her.
out, and
right.
yeah, I think she, maybe she. I think that's very
nice
wise.
Save, nice
we
save.
don't turn out as well.
So just to give you actual data to disprove the ridiculousness that you just heard, McBath's district actually leans significantly Republican and went for President Donald Trump in 2016. McBath inched ahead of her competitor, Republican Karen Handel, who has said that she'll run again, with 50.5% of the vote in 2018. So she won by a very slim margin, but I want to be very clear. She won while running in the state of Georgia on gun control policy. I mean, that is insane. So McBath didn't respond directly to Meadows, but she did tweet about her victory, and I would argue that it's probably in reference to Meadows, and I want to share some of those tweets with you. So let's take a look at the first one. She says, "I was just a Marietta mom. I loved my son Jordan more than anything else in the world. After Jordan was murdered, I realized that nobody was going to change our laws for us, so I had to do it myself." So that's just, she's so inspiring. She also says, "After Jordan was ripped away from me, I did not stop being his mom. Every single thing I do is out of the love that I have for my son. My love for Jordan is what I extend to my work or to the work I do in my community every single day." So she's not quiet about gun control. And she has been pushing the state of Georgia, in some cases, successfully so, to do something about gun control. In fact, she also tweeted about that. Let's go to the next graphic. "I have faced attack after attack from the far right, but that hasn't stopped my work for families of Georgia, District 8. The House has already passed gun safety legislation for the first time in decades, and there is much more to come." Yes.
That's great. You know,
I just love it.
You know, some of these people are just, I mean, they are, I mean, the lady, the new president of the NRA, being this white lady, you know, playing the race card. It's just, you're gonna, I mean, you're totally insensitive to the times we live in. You shouldn't be playing that card regardless. You know, she could have said there was other reasons, as if she really wants to downplay the gun thing. But I feel, and I hope, fingers crossed, that there is a tide against for gun control. You see, like Eric Swalwell running on gun control, and I hope that he goes far, because I really feel, I mean, how many massacres are we going to need? How
Exactly.
many, you know?
There was another shooting today in Colorado. And it's the interesting thing for what Meadows is doing is she's kind of playing on this narrative that everything's great for blacks and people just voted for you because you're a black female and that's a hot topic. Whereas we still carry with us negative stereotypes and connotations that make us vulnerable members of society. We just saw what went down with Sandra Bland and the video coming out today. That's things we face on a daily basis. Getting jobs and having opportunities and just being able to exist in your own space is something that's continually denied to people of color. And so for this Meadows woman to pretend that it somehow elevates you in a political sphere where we have been excluded by and large for however long, as in forever, it's like, come on now. But hey, you know, you see maybe one black person do well in some form or fashion and you assume Oh yes, everything's great for them. They're taking everything and they're getting things by virtue of their blackness or their color. And it's like, really, yo? Is the struggle still every day, and it's still very real.
So Gallup recently surveyed Americans, a nationally representative sample of Americans, to see, what most Americans feel in regard to gun legislation and gun control. And here's what they found. So in a recent Gallup poll, 61% of Americans believe the nation's gun laws need to be more strict. 61%. Also, 61 worry about the availability of guns, a great deal or a fair amount. So most Americans want to do something about this.
Yeah.
And I don't think that McBath won based on luck or on accident. Again, her platform was all about doing something about the laxed gun laws that are leading to all these deaths, and she won. And the NRA doesn't like that truth, because it doesn't fit with their narrative.
That's right.
I wish I could get in the heads of the Wayne LaPierres and the Dana Loesch, is that how you pronounce it? I'm just wondering, do they have a lot of financial interests in the gun culture? Is that why they're so passionate, or are they really?
What would they do for work if it weren't
That's what I'm curious. I'm curious because I mean, at some point, a objective person would sit there and go, all right, you know what? Yes, there are certain regulations we should implement. There are certain guns we really don't need out there. And the argument a lot of times you hear back, you go, well, there's already laws on the books, we just gotta implement them. Well, okay, then implement them and let's go further and let's look at these problems. It's not just mental health.
Right.
It's a combination. As somebody who's trying to be objective here, I'm gonna say it's not just the guns, it is mental health and it's guns and there's a lot of other aspects to it. But that's why I'm saying these guys are so zero tolerance in terms of any kind of legislation. So I just wonder what kind of financial interest they have and where their real sincere heart is, or I don't know, I'd be curious.
I think their heart is where the money is.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the weapons manufacturers help keep the NRA alive.
Yep.
And if you're funded by gun manufacturers, then you're gonna do and say as you're told. And they just keep pushing this narrative that's been so incredibly harmful. And yes, we do have laws, but there are also all sorts of terrible loopholes to those laws, including the federal background check and how the FBI has a very limited amount of time to conduct a background check when someone is attempting to buy a gun. Of course, the gun show loophole, we've talked about that, everyone knows about that. We know that those loopholes exist, and there needs to be something done to change that.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.